the start of her reign, society in Elizabethan England was made up of 3 million peasants. The majority of them lived in rural towns, but during this period many people moved to London for work. Yeomen made good money, gentry made more money, and nobles were born into wealth. Only 1% of the population were part of the nobility. 95% were born into poverty, where they could not make enough for a living. In government, authority was divided between the monarch, the nobles, and the gentry. The monarch would meet daily with the closest advisors in the Privy Council to discuss politics, religion, and economics. For the monarch to pass laws, a vote had to be held in the House of Lords and the House of Commons. Elizabeth struggled to get support because she was illegitimate, and on top of that she was a female. All Christian denominations believed women should be submissive, quiet homemakers, so very few believed she could rule an entire country, and especially not without a husband. However, those close to Elizabeth would describe her as strong-willed and confident, religious and very intelligent. At times, she was highly indecisive. People wanted a man to rule, especially when they had powerful enemies on all sides. On top of this, a lot of people were already unhappy. Taxes had been climbing higher and higher to raise funds for the monarchy. Most people could not afford to buy food, let alone pay tax. The price of food had soared because of the poor quality harvest in the past few years. England had owned Calais in France, but lost it under Mary Tudor. Elizabeth decided not to go to war to reclaim it and signed the Treaty of Château-Chambray, giving the land to Philip II. She had inherited a national debt worth 100 million today, and she did not want to pay for the extra costs of war. Religion was divided during the reign of Elizabeth between the Catholics, Protestants, and Puritans. Catholics believed that the Pope was the head of the church and therefore obeyed his orders. They also emphasized well-decorated churches, clothing and ornaments, and took Mass. Protestants believed decorations were a distraction in church. The Pope was not part of their religion. They took orders from the monarch as the head of the church. Puritans, on the other hand, believed everyone was equal. They did not swear an oath to the monarch or to anyone. God was the head of the church. They were often seen as the extreme version of Protestants. Protestants and Puritans did not take Mass or believe in transubstantiation. The majority of Catholics resided in the northern area of England, with the Puritans and Protestants in the south. People were often put to death for having different religious beliefs to the monarch. Elizabeth introduced the religious settlement in 1559 to put an end to the extreme divide. In the Act of Supremacy, Elizabeth declared herself the supreme governor of the church. This was done so that everyone would have to swear an oath to the Queen, Catholics and Protestants. Then there was the Act of Uniformity. Everyone had to go to church on Sundays and pay tithe. People who did not conform would have to pay a penalty. Although Elizabeth was Protestant, she didn't get rid of all the Catholic decorations in the church. The clothes and the candles still remained. The Church of England was a crucial part of government. Some of the most educated people in society were part of the clergy. They helped distribute money towards the poor and were in charge of educating the youths. Puritans were not impressed with the religious settlement. They opposed the idea because it was lenient towards the Catholics. Especially in London, Puritan preachers began to spread more extreme views. Catholics were also angry that the country was being run by a Protestant. Just before Elizabeth came to the throne, England was a Catholic nation. This meant that Elizabeth had many enemies. The majority of established nobles were Catholic. These nobles had vast amounts of land and private armies, so they were a huge threat to the monarch. The Pope also opposed Elizabeth's decision to make England a Protestant nation. Attempts were made to convert her and the people back to the Catholic faith during her reign. Her refusal to convert led to her excommunication in 1570, which meant all Catholics were no longer obliged to obey her orders. They could do anything they wanted. This increased the danger against her life. France and Spain were also Catholic nations. They were incredibly powerful, wealthy, and too close for comfort. Now that they no longer shared the same religion, they were no longer allies, and this increased the chance of war. There was another Queen of England during the reign of Elizabeth. Henry VIII's sister, Margaret Tudor, had a daughter, Mary. Mary, Queen of Scots, fled from Scotland to England the year after Elizabeth's coronation, following the allegation that she had murdered her husband. Now there were 2 queens in England. The Catholics saw Mary as a true queen and were prepared to do anything to get her on the throne. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to go through the entire course in 20 minutes, join us on Patreon.